In a small, isolated town, there circulated a chilling legend about an antique mirror that had once belonged to a notorious witch. The townsfolk feared this cursed item, believing it held the ability to trap souls and reveal the darkest secrets of those who gazed into it. Many tried to destroy it, smashing it, performing rituals or sealing it away, but all efforts failed, often making things worse. As the mirror shattered, a cacophony of anguished whispers erupted from the fragments, filling the room with a sound that was both mournful and malevolent. The shards, caught in the light, twinkled ominously like stars in a night sky, but instead of comfort, they brought dread. "Clara!" Lisa yelled again, her heart racing as she watched the shards pulse with a life of their own. Each piece seemed to contain the echoes of Clara's trapped soul, a haunting reminder of her fate. "We have to get out of here!" The friends stumbled back, still reeling from the shock. But as they turned to leave, the air became thick with the scent of iron, and a chilling darkness began to seep from where the mirror had stood. The shadows, which had initially seemed contained in the glass, now twisted and swirled like angry storm clouds, filling the room with an impenetrable gloom. "Clara!" Derek shouted again, desperate to reach his friend, but the darkness coiled around him, forcing him to stumble backward. "We need to call for help!" But before they could make a plan, the room trembled and the shadows lunged forward, taking on twisted forms of terror, figures that mirrored Clara's torment, spiraling around them with ghostly faces contorted in agony. "Run!" Lisa urged, grabbing Derek's hand as they dashed toward the apartment door. But the shadows were relentless, swirling in a vicious dance, forming a barrier that threatened to engulf them. The whispers grew louder, a chaotic symphony of despair and rage, each one a chilling reminder of Clara's plight. "Join us! Join us!" In a whirlwind of panic, the friends ran for the windows, but they were sealed shut, heavy with the darkness that lingered in the room. Every cry for help was swallowed by the oppressive air, and dread began to seep into their hearts. "Wait!" Derek yelled suddenly, his mind racing. "What if we can use the shards? If they're part of the mirror, maybe we can turn it back on itself." Lisa and Sam nodded, fear still etched across their faces. But they knew they had to try something. They quickly gathered the largest shards that lay scattered across the floor, the reflections shimmering with flickers of light distorted by dark tendrils. With trembling hands, they laid the shards in a circle in the center of the room, hoping to form a sort of counterspell, a barrier against the encroaching shadows. They began to chant, their voices rising over the cacophony that surrounded them. "Clara, if you can hear us," Lisa cried, "we're here! Fight it! We believe in you!" As the words echoed through the room, the shadows hesitated, swirling momentarily as if disturbed by the sound of their friend's name. They pressed on, creating a chant that wove the essence of friendship, love and hope, an incantation calling for Clara's spirit to rise against the darkness. A moment later, the air shifted. The oppressive weight began to lift, and for an instant they saw Clara's reflection in the shards, her face streaked with tears, but her eyes burning with fierce determination. "Help me!" she shouted, her voice breaking through the noise. The friends felt a glimmer of hope, so close yet so far. "Hold on, Clara!" Derek urged. "We're fighting for you, just focus on our voices." Gathering their strength, they chanted louder, the shards glowing brighter with each repetition of Clara's name. The shadows began to writhe in pain, shrieking in harmony with the whispers that spilled from their depths. Light burst forth from the shards, illuminating the darkness, sending shards of shadow splintering into the corners of the room. As the shards of glass surged with energy, Clara's reflection became clearer, showing her reaching out toward them, her fingers inching closer, hoping to breach the suffocating veil separating her from the real world. In a final push, the group shouted, "We won't let you have her! Clara, come back!" Suddenly the darkness convulsed violently, forcing its way back against the edges of the room as Clara's scream tore through the air. The ground beneath them shook, and with one final echo of defiance, the shadows shrieked and faded into nothingness, sucked back into the fragments of shattered glass. The air fell still, and the energy around them pulsed with a brilliant light. "Clara!" they yelled as the last remnants of darkness evaporated. From the center of the circle, a swirling light intensified, and Clara's figure began to materialize, her features still stricken with fear but growing solid and whole. The friends rushed forward as her spirit erupted from the shards, embracing her into their circle of warmth and safety. "I thought I'd lost you, Lisa!" Despite the fearful stories that lingered in the air, a curious college student named Clara was intrigued by the mirror. An antique dealer had recently uncovered it in the estate of a deceased local and was selling it at a modest price.
It's quite the piece, isn't it? A real conversation starter.
Yes, it's beautiful. I'll take it.
Clara, drawn by its ornate frame and heavy glass, couldn't resist bringing it home. That evening, as she set the mirror up in her dimly lit bedroom, a sense of unease washed over her. The glass was streaked, and in the corner of her vision, she felt as if the reflection was subtly shifting, as though something was lurking just out of sight. Shaking off her apprehension, she chalked it up to her imagination and sunk into her studies. As the days passed, Clara began to notice strange occurrences. She would catch movement in the mirror's reflection when no one was behind her. Shadows flitted across her room, but whenever she turned to look, nothing was there. At night, whispers echoed softly in her ears, words she could not comprehend but that sent chills racing down her spine.
It's just the stress of school, she murmured to herself, attempting to justify her growing paranoia.
But the whispers grew louder, more persistent, filling her dreams with dark images and eerie laughter. One night, unable to sleep, Clara stood before the mirror.
"What do you want from me?" she asked, her voice trembling.
The whispers responded not with words, but with a deafening roar that reverberated through her mind, sending her stumbling back. Frightened but intrigued, Clara decided to gather more information about the history of the mirror.
"I need to know what I'm dealing with."
She visited the town's library and discovered that the previous owners had all met tragic fates: madness, disappearance, and even death.
Each had purportedly stared too long into the depths of the glass, becoming entranced by the secrets it held.
That night she could no longer resist the allure of the mirror.
"I can't stop myself. I have to know."
She stood before it, her heart racing.
"Show me your secrets."
She whispered, feeling a pull, as if unseen hands beckoned her closer. Suddenly, the surface of the glass rippled like water disturbed by a stone. Clara's reflection twisted grotesquely, a sinister smile creeping across her features that felt foreign. Panic surged through her, but she couldn't look away. The whispers intensified, swirling around her like a tempest. "Join us! Join us!"
Clara felt a sensation of falling, as if she was being pulled into the mirror itself. The world around her faded, and she found herself enveloped in a dark realm, the walls pulsating with a life of their own. Shadows danced around her, warping and shifting, and she realized too late that she was trapped within the mirror's domain. "Help!" she screamed, but her voice only echoed back at her, mocking. The shadows moved closer, their forms melding into grotesque shapes, eyes glinting malevolently. In a frantic attempt to break free, Clara pushed against an invisible barrier, but it was futile. The whispers grew louder, drowning out her thoughts. "You belong to us now."
Days in the real world turned into weeks, with Clara's friends growing worried. They hadn't heard from her in days and decided to check on her. When they arrived at her apartment, they found it empty. Everything except the mirror, which now loomed ominously in the corner. As they gathered around it, Lisa, Clara's roommate, felt a sudden chill run down her spine. She approached the mirror, looking into its depths.
"Clara?"
Her reflection appeared normal, but behind her, the shadows writhed. Suddenly, the reflection warped, showing Clara's face twisted in terror.
"Get away, it's a trap!"
She screamed, but the voice came weak and distorted, swallowed by the dark. Panic erupted among her friends as they tried to pull Lisa away from the mirror, but it was too late. The whispers surged, grabbing hold of her consciousness.
"Join us! Join us!"
They chorused, pulling her closer.
No, Lisa, don't.
Derek shouted, but he couldn't reach her. Just as the shadows began to envelop Lisa, she broke free, stumbling back in terror.
We have to destroy it.
She screamed, her eyes wide with horror, but Clara was still trapped, her friends unable to rescue her as the darkness closed in. In a desperate attempt, they found a heavy bookend nearby and hurled it at the mirror. The glass shattered, sending shards flying in every direction.